We have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center?
Are you going to comply and turn all the guns in? Because then they'll ban the other guns. You see, once you pass the test, once they can take 10% out of your Cyprus accounts, first it was 7.7, then it was 9.9, then it was 10.2, then it was 14.5, then it was 35%, 40%, 60, 70, 80. Now they're just saying, we're taking all the money out. I laugh because, man, this isn't hard to figure out how this works. You lay down to a bunch of wolves, they're going to tear our guts out. And I am sick of being nice guy and putting up with all this bull while a bunch of criminals run all over us and walk all over us and tell the world that the good guys are the bad guys. That's when you know you're 2 minutes to midnight. Is when they're killing the unborn in the womb, and then they say, let's start killing kids up to age 3. Let's have death panels. And you're like, that'll never happen. It's the law. They kill babies all over this country that are a year old, 2 years old.
And I will see you all tomorrow. Oh, just before you go, I just need to press this little button here. Now, everybody, please remember to read chapters 5 and 6 on volcanoes and glaciation. Except for Philip and Tracy, of course.
They've got people strapped down in local hospitals, and nobody's coming to save them, who don't have any family in our wards of the state who can talk, begging for water. And when they don't die, they remove the nurse and reprimand them and say, I know you're giving Mr. Johnson water. I've had the nurses on. I've had the Wall Street Journal writer, best-selling author Wesley Smith on. He's been there trying to get people out of hospitals who are going, thank you for helping me. You know, the guy was slightly brain damaged, paralyzed chest down. Was that the Winland case? Please don't let them kill me. And then he was alive 30 days later when they said take the water and food. So they just removed the nurses and put in the nurses that like to kill. And then 5, 6 days later, the tongue is cracking because all the water goes to the central organs. And the blood starts coming out all the orifices. The blood starts coming out of the cracks in the eyes. The blood starts coming out of the gums. And the people are like, please give me water, please, please, please. Strapped down, and water isn't coming. They're killing people all over the place. Every major hospital, they're murdering people right now, right now, right now. And now they come out in the journal of bioethics. That's the death panels, the bioethics boards. And they say, federally appointed boards, we're going to start killing kids up to age 3. But if you spank your 2-year-old who tries to open the back gate and go on the street for the 4th time, they're going to take your child because they love them. Isn't that a good one? They love killing them slow with the 100+ vaccines they get by age 5 now. They love bringing them up and watching you flounder. Watching you cry night after night as your autistic child has diarrhea and health problems and mental problems. They feed on that pain and they intend it to continue. The truth is they don't like to just kill kids right out in the open quickly. They like to take their time and brain damage them while the television programs them with satanic brainwashing to hopefully get their souls. Isn't that just sweet? Isn't that sweet? All of you that like evil, all of you that like to play with evil, you think it's going to give you power, but you've never really seen into evil and you don't know what it's really going to do to you. Go ahead, stick your arm in that dark hole. Go ahead, work with the dark side. Go ahead. You think there's power there? You're like a moth to the flame of the black sunshine. Black sunshine. Rolling like a slug from a 45. True death. A self-destructive fascination. screaming to the edge of nothing.
We've gone from the bottom to the top, ladies. But we're not just an empire. We're a family. We're not just an empire. We're a family. We're not just an empire. We're a family. We're a family. We're a family. We're a family.
Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? Does anybody else see a problem here? If the government has nothing to hide, why are they so afraid to answer a few questions? This story does not add up.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The title of this report is A Satirist's Dream, Closing the Gap Between Anti-Corruption Law and Reality. I could fill my 60 seconds talking about the 18 years' worth of unaudited accounts, or the bazillions that are squandered on agriculture and foreign aid boondoggles, or the Tillack case where instead of any of the alleged fraudsters being arrested, it was the journalist trying to find out about them who found himself banged up by the police. I could talk about the 6.6 million spent last year by European Commissioners simply on entertainment and luxury gifts and hotels. I could talk about the wonderful spectacle of President Van Rompuy and Commissioner Ashton flying to the same meeting in Russia in separate private jets, leaving Brussels within 4 hours of each other. Instead, I'll confine myself to saying this. These things happen not because the EU attracts particularly bad people. I mean, of course, it attracts some bad people. Man is fallen, and like all institutions, it contains those who give in to temptation. It happens rather because there is no link between taxation, representation and expenditure at Brussels level. It was Milton Friedman who said there's two kinds of money in the world. There's your money and there's my money. The trouble is that in the EU, it's all your money. Hence negligence, corruption, fraud, and what we see before us today.
Mr. Co-President Nigel Farage, Freedom and Democracy.
Well, good morning, Mr. Van Rompuy. You've been in office for 1 year, and in that time, the whole edifice is beginning to crumble. There's chaos. The money's running out. I should thank you. You should perhaps be the pin-up boy of the Eurosceptic movement. But just look around this chamber this morning. Just look at these faces. Look at the fear. Look at the anger. Poor old Barroso here looks like he's seen a ghost. You know, they're beginning to understand that the game is up. And yet, in their desperation to preserve their dream, they want to remove any remaining traces of democracy from the system. And it's pretty clear that none of you have learned anything. You know, when you yourself, Mr. Van Rompuy, say that the euro has brought us stability, I suppose I could applaud you for having a sense of humour, but isn't this really just the bunker mentality? You know, your fanaticism is out in the open. You talked about the fact that it was a lie to believe that the nation state could exist in a 21st century globalised world. Well, that may be true in the case of Belgium, who haven't had a government for 6 months, but for the rest of us, right across every member state in this union, and perhaps this is why we see the fear in the faces, increasingly people are saying, we don't want that flag, we don't want the anthem, we don't want this political class, we want the whole thing consigned to the dustbin of history. And we had the Greek tragedy earlier on this year, and now we have the situation in Ireland. Now I know that the stupidity and greed of Irish politicians has a lot to do with this. They should never ever have joined the euro. They suffered with low interest rates, a false boom and a massive bust. But look at your response to them. What they're being told, as their government's collapsing, is that it would be inappropriate for them to have a general election. In fact, Commissioner Wren here said they had to agree their budget first before they'd be allowed to have a general election. Just who the hell do you think you people are? You are very, very dangerous people indeed. Your obsession with creating this euro state means that you're happy to destroy democracy. You appear to be happy for millions and millions of people to be unemployed and to be poor. Untold millions must suffer so that your euro dream can continue. Well, it won't work, because it's Portugal next. With their debt levels of 325% of GDP, they're the next ones on the list, and after that, I suspect it'll be Spain. And the bailout for Spain would be 7 times the size of Ireland, and at that moment, all of the bailout money has gone. There won't be any more. But it's even more serious than economics, because if you rob people of their identity, if you rob them of their democracy, then all they are left with is nationalism and violence. I can only hope and pray that the euro project is destroyed by the markets before that really happens.
Thank you.
They cannot create the world of Orwell. They have to manipulate us to create it. And what they're doing all the time, and a lot of this stuff in the movies, which are feeding you what they want to happen. Look at all the movies over the last, decade or so, more and more now all the time, that are portraying this very police state and this very Orwellian fascist Agenda 21 world that I've been talking about. They're doing that for a reason. It's to implant that in the subconscious so it becomes reality through humans' creative imagination.